to my channel. Today we're going to be working on the 1961 Jaguar, the frame in particular today. We're going to be focusing on the front of it, and I've got some welding to do here. Let's zoom in and take a closer look at that. I've chosen this 2005 Crown Victoria front end for my 61 Jaguar because I feel like it's a tried and true front end that other people have used and have had plenty of success with. I'm going to go with the Chevy LS motor, which works well with this IFS frame front suspension. So I had to chop the old frame as it was too narrow. It started there and here, and it needed to be a lot wider. So I basically had to make my own front end clip from scratch. In picking this front suspension, I bought it off the car already, and I didn't have measurements where the front sway bar would be. So as you can see here, it actually has to go through the front supports of my clip here. No problem, no, I made it work. It should still be very strong and sturdy. I made sure I boxed in all the corners. I'm using 3/16 steel, and I've got it bolted here with 2 plates, so those can come off for servicing the front sway bar. Today we're going to be working on finish boxing in the front clip to the existing frame. So I've got some welds here I need to weld, and I got some boxing done in the front here. I also need to put a plate on the bottom. Another plate's going to come across there, and then they're all going to tie in around here, and make sure that is very tight and secure so it doesn't come off down the road. So let's get to it. So first off, I've got to put a nice weld all the way down here to join the old frame with the new subframe front end. And then after I put that weld in, I've got some I think it's 1.5 inch 3/16 thick flat bar that I'm then gonna put in over top of that one weld, and then I'm gonna weld that in to double brace it. Me, I like to do things kind of a little bit overkill. That way you make sure you got everything strong and stable, because when you have a 800 horsepower engine, you definitely want to have enough bracing and stability on your frame. You want a very, very strong frame. So then after I put this piece on, I will come to the other side and I'll show you what we're going to do. Made a little cardboard template here. We're going to be boxing in the new subframe with the old frame like this. So after those 2 welds are in on that corner, this piece will go in like this. And then once that piece is welded in, you get another piece. This is not what I'm going to be using, but something similar to that. So then you box in the top. Basically, the whole old frame is then boxed in with your new frame, and the more weld spots I think you have on it, the better and more rigid that frame's going to be. And that's kind of what it's going to look like. So definitely preparation is about 90% of the job. You want to make sure your weld locations are very clean. Use acetone as well to clean it, prep the surface after I grind it down to fresh metal, and then I'll weld it with the MIG welder here. So let's get to it. Step on the land, I've got your hand. So I've got the area grinded down to bare metal. Now it's time to throw some acetone on there. Make sure you got no contamination, otherwise your welds will not be good. And I'll probably blow it out with air just one last time just to make sure. Something obviously used to mount it here, I'm not quite sure. There's nothing mounted to it when I got the car. So I'm definitely going to have to cut this off, remove it. That way when my piece comes across, it's not going to interfere with it. Good old Sawzall's your buddy. Gets those hard to get pieces off where you don't want them. Deleted. Alright, let's get those nubs here removed because this is going to interfere with my bottom plate. It's not going to interfere, but you know, it's just better to get it cleaned. Deleted. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean this up and I'll get that prepared and ready for welding. Okay, we'll hit it with some acetone here. Definitely make sure you got a clean surface. Hit it with some air. By no means am I a pro welder, but I think I'm a proficient welder, so I believe my welds will hold. And maybe that's why I reinforce everything double time over, just to make sure everything's going to stick well. There's a pretty big gap in there, so I think I'm going to have to put some weld in there and then just kind of build the weld up and build the weld up, and that's also why I'm going to put the 1.5 inch flat bar in, you know, as well, just to make sure that everything welds and is connected great. Yep, that looks beautiful. A lot of wire for sure. It's a lot of welds there. Switch over to my welding gloves. That's starting to get a little bit hot. I think with all that continuous welding, it sure generates a lot of heat. So I'm bonding 3/16 metal to something a little bit smaller, probably a little bit bigger than an 1/8 inch metal. Okay, now right here there's a hole kind of like this right there, so I'm not quite sure. I'm probably just going to have to leave a gap there and just get close enough to it as if I can, because I don't think it's going to bond well together. Pretty tough. The more heat you put in it, this 1/8 inch steel is a lot smaller, so if you focus more of your heat on this side, it's just going to kind of burn through like it did right there. So I'll just keep trying to work this side, and maybe the metal will mold over to the other side, bond, and then I'll have a good solid path. Looks great. Let me hit it with a wire wheel and then you guys can take a look at it. Definitely, I think with the thicker metal, a lot easier to weld. Anyone really can weld thick metal. It's the smaller metal, I think that's a little bit harder. So as you can see, not perfect weld, but it's definitely a weld that's bonded nicely. It's a thick spread, and it should work pretty good. after the weld, it's always a good idea to go over with a sanding disc, get all the burrs out of the way. That way when you put the flat bar in, it's got a flat, clean, level surface to weld to. Alright, let's get this welded.
Step on the land, I've got your hand, and now we're way down, fade out low. Was it your plan? Can't understand. I love the air you bring, everything. Under the sun, a fire is burning. You tell me to hold on tight. I wish that we could stay here forever. I wanna remember. Oh, the sight of you brings the fight in me, makes me wanna move. Fingers down your spine, looking in my eyes, feel your hands on mine. Tonight we're freer than ever. I wanna remember. Oh, we run every endeavor. I wanna remember.
A couple spots where, you know, if you got grease and not a clean surface in the back, it brings up impurities and gases, and even though this shoots gas to clear the oxygen so you get a clean weld, sometimes you will get a couple spots, you know, dealing with this. As you can see, the oil, this is heated up, the oils and smoke's coming out, kind of counteracts the gas that's coming out of here. Still a very clean weld, a thick weld, looks good. I'll clean it up and then I'll get the plate bar and put that on and tack it on and weld it.
Makes me wanna move. Fingers down your spine, looking in my eyes, feel your hands on mine. Tonight we're freer than ever. I wanna remember.
Alright, so I got the, let's see, tape. Yep, 1.5 inch flat bar, 6 inches long. This bad boy is going to go right up in here. So I've got the initial weld in there to hold the two pieces together, and then I'm going to do this extra bracing. I'm not quite sure what the bracing is called, but I know it's extra bracing. Got a couple tacks in there. So my thought here is, you know, you got your one weld holding the two pieces together. You've got this little flat bar piece, again, holding the two pieces together. And then with my pattern piece, it's going to come across and then box in the outer edge of it to the frame. So basically it has 1, 2, 3 points of adheration. And I also did the same on this side. So it's definitely not going to separate or twist or bend or flex. It's definitely going to be very solid and almost like it's one piece. So let's get to welding this up. Okay, look at that. Nice solid flat bar locked in there. Let that cool down. Probably go on the other side, make that weld. I know when you throw so much heat into it, you know, thicker metal, I don't think it's as important, but you definitely can warp and bend metal if you put too much heat in it at one time. So, you know, I probably should have made a couple passes and then go over to the other side and then work both sides, but pretty confident this 3/16 steel and then this metal is thick enough. I think it'll be okay. Okay, got the flat bar piece all nicely done. done. Now we can work on cutting this pattern. Well, actually, let's test fit this side and make sure this side's good. So you just flip your pattern from the other side to this side and you'll get the same results. It looks like it's lining up good, so I can make 2 pieces of this and then tack and weld those together. And once you make your pattern here out of cardboard, you can then transfer it on the metal that you're going to be using. This is 6.5 inch wide, 3/16 thick steel. So you just put it on there, mark it out, cut it, and you've got a perfect pattern to weld onto your car. So another nice piece of equipment to have in your shop or where you're working is some sort of table, preferably metal. That way when you're cutting, grinding, welding, it doesn't catch on fire. This one I made by myself. It's called a skeleton welding table. I just looked online at welding tables, saw what was maybe the best choice to do as far as flexibility and able to use. I mean, a lot of people just use a flat, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch flat plate on top. The skeleton's nice because you're able to get clamps in between it and clamp in any various positions, which works out really nice, you know, when you're doing smaller things or big things too. So my pattern I marked down twice on here. I'm going to cut it with the cutting wheel here, and then weld them on there. Yep, so let's get to it. Clean up the edges and get those prepped for welding. I know it's not good to leave things as bare metal, so when I'm going to be installing these plates and boxing this in, there's going to be a lot of bare metal here, so I'm just going to hit it with some primer. It's better than nothing, and it's better than leaving it rusty. So I'll hit it with a coat of paint and then just grind the areas that I'm going to be welding, and then it should suffice. I mean, the whole frame's going to end up getting probably just sandblasted clean and then etch primered, and then probably either powder coat or just you know, an epoxy or something on it. So I'll get this all done. So unfortunately my battery died, and it was unfortunate that I wasn't able to get any more footage of me welding in the plating and boxing here. But as you can see, it's finished. It's got the welding through here, 2 plates, and then I haven't done the bottom plate yet. And then on the other side it looks just like this, and I'll show you. This is the other side, and it's got the same thing done pretty much on this side. My goal for this frame and car is to have kind of a lower profile riding height. The brick and the little spacer over there is about 5 inches. So I set that up front to back. So that gives me a 5-inch ride height. And then I wanted the suspension of the Crown Victoria to be at its normal ride height and still blend in with my car. So that's why the frame, I don't know, sits up about another 8 inches higher than what the lower part of the frame would be. So that's also gonna raise the engine motor mounts and the engine, which I think will also still clear, because in the engine compartment and hood there's quite a bit of space in there. So we'll see, time will tell when I get to that part. it's like once you start modifying one piece, you then find yourself modifying more and more and more as you go down through the project. But that's what I wanted, and it looks like it's turning out great. And then after this, I want to have a rolling suspension. So I have a Ford 9-inch rear end that I purchased. I'm going to be doing a 4-link setup on it. 2 bottom links are going to be parallel with the frame, and the upper 2 links, they're going to be in a 45-degree-ish kind of angle, going off from the corner here to there and the corner over there to here, so you don't need a panhard bar in the back. I'm going to do coilovers or airbags in the back as well, something to be able to, because I want to be able to drop the frame completely on the ground and then raise it up to ride height. So there's going to be some major modifications going in the back. It also looks like the back is not as braced or stout as the front, so I'm going to have to do some modifying to brace the back as well. And I'm thinking about 600, 700 horsepower in the engine, LS engine, so that's all going to be transferred to the back here, so I want to make sure it's pretty strong so nothing twists or bends. I want to be able to do fatty skids with my 335 tires in the back. So that's where we're at so far. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.